The time is now 12 o'clock, and I'd like to call to order the Board of Trustees Special Board Meeting for May the 5th. The first item on our agenda is public comment, and I've been informed that we don't have any public comment. So item number 2 is a report item, and we will recognize Mr. Horner. And let me say before you start, Jeff, Mr. Marquez will be joining us. He was leaving an appointment. He'll be here in a minute, so he'll step in.
So thank you,
Mr. Horner.
Thank you, President Murray, trustees. Mr. Brown, thanks for giving me this time. Really, this few minutes that I have with you, I'd like to just kind of give some instructions for board members, very specifically related to commencement, because several new board members, and we've not done the large commencement now for 2 years. So just bringing things back to in front of you. I'll draw to your attention in your packet, if you'll find this handout at the back of your packet. You have this as well in the board electronic version. You have everything you'll need for instructions. So just draw to attention the way this is designed. Our first, it goes in order of events. So our first commencement exercise is early college high school. That is a week from this Friday, so May 14th. So you'll see each one of them has a location. The electronic version actually has the maps that you'll need if you need to find those locations, the time that it starts, and then the arrival time. That's very specific to board members, if you'll look at that. And then parking. Shap Center, for example, parking will be near gate 3. We'll have that designated for board members, superintendent to have parking nearest the door. And then the preparation. So we'll have the green room open for you. That's where I'll have all your regalia, all of the materials you'll need. You'll have commencement programs, so you can divide up the graduates as you see fit in how you'd like to deliver the diploma. And we'll help with commencement gowns and all of those features. So those of you that have not been in the Shap Center in the green room, so when you go through gate 3, you'll go behind the stage. There are 2 tunnels, and so you can kind of see. The reason I'm giving this description, the tunnel to stage right is where the green room is, and we'll have all of your stuff there ready for you. We go through graduation. I'll take you through that. I'll lead the team of 8 through graduation. You'll have seating on the stage. You'll notice, I believe, the second to the last page in your packet is just basic seating for both Grande and for Shap Center. And so you'll have a plaque on your chair as you arrive on stage. You'll know where to sit. It won't be any question. And of course, we are going to shake hands. We're going to deliver the diploma with a handshake. We'll have hand sanitizer available for board members. In between, we're also using a hand sanitizer on kids as they go down. So it's just a safety precaution. But we are shaking hands. Kids, of course, they'll take their mask off as they go across stage. And then, of course, all the details that you need before, during, and at the end of the event, I tried to list it out for you. So early college is at Shap Center. The next graduation ceremony is Thursday, May 27th at Grande. Of course, this is new for all of us, so it's why I wanted this time. There's a couple things. You will have a green room type hospitality room, and you'll have designated parking. The best location for this is going to be where you've designated the locker room facility, which is north of the field. So those of you who have gone to football games, you've gone upstairs. We're actually not going to utilize that for the board because of crowds and elevator speed and all those kind of things. So we have designated parking. You'll see on the very last page the Grande map. And so designated parking for the board, for trustees and for superintendent. Cabinet is going to be north of gate 3. So this is the visitors parking closest towards the hotel. If you've,
but not in the fenced area.
Not in the fenced area, yes, sir. So we are using the fenced area for staging prep for the graduates. So that's like it would have been behind the curtain if you're familiar with the old graduation. So, but it's really right close to that, and you will not go through the tickety gate where spectators go through. You will actually go through the fenced area to the locker room facility. So we'll have a green room set up for you at the at that east side. You can see on the map where it is. Again, we'll have all your board regalia, gowns, all of those things ready for you to do. I'll escort the team of 8, and then we'll kick off the ceremony at 8:30. So each one of these has the start time and requested arrival time, so we can get you prepared. Really, the process is the same for all 4 graduations. The difference is the location and time. So again,
I've heard nothing but positive comments about Grande, by the way.
that's great.
The only question I got was why an 8:30 start seems so late. I just said because of the heat.
And we have put together an FAQ document that's now public, but yeah, that's been one of the questions that we did get. We're able to get every graduate, we're able to guarantee them 8 tickets, and that's, even at Chat Center, pre-COVID, Midland High's graduates 2 years ago, we were only able to get 4 because we had so many graduates that, we filled up Chat Center. So it's going to be a great move. It's been great to work with the city, and they've been very helpful. One of the things I'll point out about moving to Grande, a lot of it's going to be new. The biggest stage you can rent in town is half the size of what we were used to at Chat Center. So we still have, you'll still see the map still applies. The second to last page. What you'll see is a smaller size. We still have board members at on stage with superintendent and the principal. And right now, the current plans are they still are going up across the stage and over. Midland College, I've been working with them and helping. We've been working together on graduation. Midland College is also at Grande. And I'm going to see, there are kind of our guinea pigs, and we're going to see how it works. So they have the exact same size stage, and so we'll practice. It might be that we actually have to go to the floor up on the turf to deliver diplomas. We have cameras set up to be on the big screen. And again, the 8:30 start time, because we're using both sides of the stadium, sunset is 8:46 on both nights, 8:47. And typically, the heat that time of year is extreme. Our neighbors to the west of us, I talked with them and they said, we've done it all kind of ways. We recommend you do not try and start it before 8:30 because of the heat typically. So, of course, you got to remember, we're also getting graduates there early and lining them up in gowns, and so we're trying to take those precautions. So that's the reason for the timing. And so far, it's been really, really positive.
Jeff, do we have numbers on how many kids in each graduation?
So I was actually hoping you would not ask that because I did not research the exact number. It is not the large numbers that we had in 19, but we are preparing for up to 700. They'll fluctuate. So I'm sorry, I don't have, I can get that, but I don't have.
That's okay. I didn't know if y'all were still finding out too.
We are, and COVID has been challenging for us to, the campuses are really working hard. We know at early college, we have right at 62, 63 graduates. We're certain on that. That's a nice large number. All those graduates predominantly are going to also get their associate's degree this Friday. So that's something to brag on. But somewhere between 600 and 700, that's a hard guess on the 2 big schools. So. Any questions on your steps through this? Y'all are a vital part of this, and I just wanted to make sure, parking, the hospitality rooms, and your steps through this were very clear, and anything I can do to help.
I don't have a question on the steps, but I would like an update on the mask. You said we're gonna have kids take the masks off as they cross the stage?
So yes, sir, we are operating under, the current plans are operating under the same as what we're doing, events in the evenings right now. So our seating, because we have 650 or so, we'll actually have 700 seats on the stadium. We cannot separate them far enough that they don't have to have masks. They're gonna be 14 inches from one another on outside.
We are outside.
We are outside, yes.
If we lift the mask mandate between now and then, would they have to mask still at graduation even?
So that's certainly something that the board may interject in, and I know that would be, I know there's been conversation and probably well received, but the reason we're operating by that is under the same systems that we're doing for schools at this time. through the school then, so.
Let me clarify my question. If students were not mandated to wear masks during school, then you would not mandate masks at graduation?
Yes.
But
Okay.
we could lift the mask mandate for graduation specifically. I mean, the CDC guidelines are, you don't have to wear a mask outside.
Yeah, but we could lift it for the rest of the school year too.
I know.
Okay.
I mean, I mean, there comes a point, it's hot.
Okay.
They're graduating, they're not coming back
Well,
to
listen,
school.
So, Mr. Joyner, are you saying you would like to see that on the agenda for the next meeting?
Do you want?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. We'll discuss that.
thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. All right, the next item on the agenda is contracts over 100,000, and it's Ms. Pena, or the presenter.
He's not in here.
Motion to approve. Darryl, do you have the details to give us?
I'm sorry, did you give a motion to approve?
Yes, sir. Do I have a second? That's second by Mr. Davis. And just so we have a little information, there are three items on the agenda. One from Ellis Construction, which is, I believe, a sewer line at Midland Freshman High School.
Yes.
Another one from Heinemann, which is classroom materials for almost 117,000, which is something we're gonna use to prepare our staff for next year, so we wanna go ahead and get it ordered.
Correct.
And then the last thing is national bus sales, and that is approximately 281,000. And that
That's
is
for
for
one more.
2021 Freightliners.
Yes, that's one more of the travel buses.
Any other discussion? All in favor, will you signify by raising your right hand? That's unanimous, 6-0 with Mr. Marquez not being in attendance. Thank you. The next thing, we will turn it over to item agenda number 4, which is Mr. Dodds. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, President Murray, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Dr. Ramsey. Thank you for the opportunity for us to present our second budget workshop. I'll let Mr. Marquez get set down before I get going.
Go ahead, he's gonna grab your
He heard it last night. so-
Yeah. I will kind of go through this fairly quickly since we've got some other agenda items on the schedule. We still have two, or actually one more budget workshop, and then we'll go through it on the 28th of June when we will approve the budget for next year. You go on to that. Yes. And that's what I was talking about, our calendar, where we're at. We will do the compensation plan on May 17th. And then approve the budget and final budget amendment on the 28th of June.
You mean budget amendments for the current fiscal year, not changes?
Budget amendment for the current fiscal year, yes. That will be our final budget amendment.
Okay.
This right, on the next page is our budget highlights, for this current year, and how we think we will finish, this year. And that's in that far right column. And it's not much change from last budget workshop. And of course, a lot of this will be addressed in the last budget amendment as we're moving forward. We're just right now in the planning stage on how we will finish out the year. Part of our process and dealing with the first report also is we have to discuss property values with the board. It used to address the property lag situation. Now it's more, now that we're in current year values, and you can go ahead to the next screen. So what I was talking about in the property lag, if we were in this budget year, the state would say that we were using these property values for our current collections, even though we were collecting on this property value. Now, through House Bill 3, they have changed it. We're current year to current year values, and we don't have that lag, which in the past, the lag would have been great when they thought you were collecting taxes here and your values went up. But when you go down and they thought you were collecting taxes on a higher value, you would receive less state funding. So it would be bad for the district at that time. And so when they went to current year values, that cleared up that lag. So now we're actually collecting taxes and the state is recognizing the current values that we're collecting taxes on. And so we don't have that year lag. These are our past certified values. And you can see, of course, 1819 was 25 billion. 1920 is where we had a huge jump, around 44% to 35 billion. We had a slight increase for this current year. And this is what we've been talking about. We did get our certified estimate from the Midland County Appraisal District on April 30th. And this is their estimate right now of what our values could look like for this next year at 32 billion. So we are losing a little over 4 billion in values, which under the current law of House Bill 3, as our values go down or our tax collections, because we'll be collecting less taxes, we actually will reduce and recapture of where we are currently. But we will still receiving about the same amount of funding through formula transition grant. And the only way to increase our funding essentially is more students. Of course, we've been going through a decline through COVID for this year. So as we work through our property values, of course, they're going to have all the challenges, the protests that they'll work through before they give us our certified values. If you remember last year, we did not get our certified values July 25th like they were supposed to be because they were doing all the protests online and they were behind. They have to have 95% of the values out of protest before they can certify the values to us. That came to us August 25th, so it was a month later before we actually got certified values. We're hoping this year that we will be back on schedule with the July 25th, but we're still under a lot of COVID restrictions on some things, and we'll just see how that plays out. I don't see a large change in that, but you never know as protest goes through how our certified values will come about. The next thing is what has been the buzz around school districts and communities is the ESSER grants that has come down through the stimulus packages that the federal government has been given. ESSER 1 was mainly a supplant by by TVA into the state budget. So we really didn't receive that funding like we are in the other ESSER funds, but they supplanted, they reduced our student ADA, which increased our recapture and reduced our formula transition grant, our state funding, by about 3.3 million, and then moved it over to a federal fund at that point in time. We still get to spend that, it just reduces general ledger, our general fund amount, and goes to the federal fund. We are able to supplant on that, just like the state government did. We've been waiting on some of the other grants that came out of the Corona Relief Fund, those grants for the technology and connectivity and different things like that. We did receive what we were going to get for that. So now we can start working on and finishing out the year on the ESSER 1. ESSER 2 is not available yet. They are still holding on how they're going to fund ESSER 2. and we're still waiting on information from the state on how that will happen. I have a feeling that they will probably work with higher ed on ESSER 2, because House Bill 3 and created a funding gap between higher ed and K through 12 ed funding. And so they'll use ESSER 2 to bring that up for higher ed. Now, we still will probably get some funding, we just don't know what that's gonna look like. ESSER 3 was released the other day. And our portion of ESSER 3 is 34.6 billion. And we are addressing how we will do that. We do have to apply for this, just like a Title I grant. We have to apply for this grant. We have to have a plan on how we will use the funds for our district. One of the requirements is a 20% minimum required spend on to address learning loss. And so we have developing a committee to get together, and we will work on that plan. And then as we submit, we have to submit by July 27th for this grant. And we will have
Important
that.
to see that plan ahead of time. Like, I'd be interested to know how we're planning to spend that kind of.
Yeah, and we have to get community stakeholder and engagement on all that, so all that will be addressed at that time.
There, what, yesterday, or, I don't know if you maybe addressed.
Go back.
The 2/3 we had a discussion about yesterday.
The 2/3 is available, so about 24 million is available. And the reason because on that is the state was only allotted the 2/3 of the grant.
Yeah.
And so once they fill out their application for the rest of it, then they will, that last third will come into play. So right now, available to us once we fill out the grant and submit it to TEA and awarded the NOGA for that, which is just awarded the amount of money we're supposed to get. We will have available 2/3, which is 24 million, or roughly $24 million. And then once TEA and the state submits their grant to the U.S. Department of Education, then they will release the third to the state, and then that third would be released to us. Now we'll have to amend our application at that point to include that amount.
That's like, so does the initial grant application due July 27th, does that ask for 3/3 of the monies?
I believe 2/3, we have to fill out the 2/3, and then when it's released down, then we will fill out we will amend the process, just like if we have a carryover in a title grant, we have to amend our budget, we have to amend our plan in order to do that.
So the first application says how we would spend 2/3 of the money, and the second application is required to say how we would.
It'll just be an
Spend the
amendment,
remaining
it won't be a
1/3.
full application, we just have to amend the budget, and I'm sure we'll address the whole thing. But if we have to address just the 1/3, then we can readdress that in the amendment.
So when we're doing this planning process, I think I saw you nodding your head, so we'll kind of plan out how we would spend all of it and then prioritize our top needs into that 2/3 sections. Is that how we would do it, or?
It's a 3-year, so it goes all the way back to
Yeah.
March 13th of 2020, all the way through September of 23, really 24.
Right,
And so it allows us, in essence, you're planning out the money for those 3 periods, the 3-year period, possibly 4 years. So we don't have to prioritize per se, it's just we're gonna say, what do we do year 1, year 2, year 3.
So, and as we get further along in the process, we can update on how all that will be taking place. Any other questions? This is another part, when I talked to TEA, they said, well, go ahead and discuss the ESSER to be part of indicator 20 on the first, so we wanted to go ahead though and give you updated information. These are just timelines of when things are ending. The top part is the top one is the ESSER 3, and ending in the 24-25 school year. ESSER 2 is, right now, is just sort of, since they haven't released it, we don't really know the timelines on what that will be. ESSER 1, of course, ends this year, when we end our fiscal year. And then we went ahead and added the formula transition grant that will end in our fiscal year 23-24. And so you see, we have two big pots of money, the ESSER 3 and the formula transition grant, all ending in that same year. As we move on to what our budget assumptions are, since our property values are going down, we don't have any compression of our tax rate for this required compression of the tax rate for this year. So we're still looking at a 95.64 cent tax rate for maintenance and operation. Still looking right now at an interest in sinking fund tax rate at 7.02 cents for a total tax rate of $1.266. Then the student membership is based off snapshot, so that's the last Friday in October. Assumed average daily attendance. This will adjust as we work through the budget process. Right now, we're looking at using this average daily attendance, where this is what we think we're going to end up at this year and run a flat ADA estimate for next year's budget. So not a decrease, not an increase, but what we think we're going to end up. And of course, we'll adjust this when we finally end up in the May. And so this number may adjust up or down however we end in the end of May, and that will be the budget assumption for next year.
How many golden pennies do we have there?
Huh?
Two?
We have four.
Four. We can go to 106.
No, that's included in the 95. Our tier 1 rate is 91.64, and then we add 4 pennies to that. We have the ability to go one more penny. But at this point in time, all that would do would reduce the state funding.
Right.
So,
But there's one penny out there that would not affect Robin Hood.
well, actually, there's 4. There's a total of 8 golden pennies. But after the 5th one, you would have to go out to the voters to allow that to happen.
Thank you.
And then, of course, our property values that I discussed while ago at 32 billion.
Capture number looks bigger, Dodds.
What's that?
That recapture number looks.
Yeah,
Another one.
I owe you lunch, so I'll go ahead and admit that. This is what we're looking at our budget. You see where we are at this current year at a $431 million revenue budget. For 21-22, since our values are going down, that reduces our tax rate, our tax levy. And so that would be at 378 is our estimated revenue, with estimated expenditures at 372 million, with a leftover budget that we could work on what we want to address also of 5.3 million. And yes, recapture is going down from this year, estimated at 144 million to 130 million, which last budget workshop, I believe it was at 63 million. We've had 2 template changes since then, and that's changed also. But also our values, we were estimating to be about a 15% change from our current year. And it would happen to be a little over 13% change. So it was a little, our value estimate was a little higher than what we were estimating. Sorry, my page is stuck together.
Remind me again, the transfer out reference as to what?
The transfer out right now is things that projects we have started and may not finish this year, or some things that capital projects that we will begin to have. whether it's the roofs or anything else, that is it. Now, these are our estimates. This hasn't gone through a budget amendment. This is just our estimates on what we're looking at, maybe some of these projects not ending at that time. Then once we do our budget amendment, we'll have our full list. This is a slide I showed y'all the other day. And I don't think I did a very good job in representing what this slide really means. This is, of course, our 18-19 year when we were at 288 million on a total budget. 19-20, we went to a $415 million budget. This needs to be updated, but we're at 400. I think this is how much expenditures are in it, 422.
Exclude TRS on behalf.
Yeah, it excludes TRS on behalf. Where we're estimating for this next year, all the way through where formula transition grant ends. What is gonna happen to us, and we're trying to be as positive in our estimates as we're going along. This gray is our recapture payroll. And then these are our department and campus budgets. And you see when this ends, what happens here. So what I'm saying here, when we get to this point, we will, if we don't change anything, moving through this area, and we're predicting a 1% increase in student population for these other 2 years and value growth, we're trying to give it the best look we can. We will probably be looking, if nothing changes off this graph, we would be looking at about a $46 million deficit budget this year. So I just want to plant the seed of what we're actually looking at when we're looking at this graph. Now, these are estimates and things change as we move through the years. But that, when we reduce our funding from that formula transition grant, when it ends, which is roughly around 60 million, it changes year to year depending on our student population and things. This is what we will be looking at in those years. Yes, sir.
Would you email us that slide, because the information in the blue box didn't
It's
get
missing
printed
from our
out?
board.
Okay, yes,
Let me
we'll
know.
get that to
All right,
you.
thank
You bet you. You bet. So I just wanted y'all to be aware of where we're at on that. And as we go to the district highlights, so this is built in the budget that I was presenting, would be our teacher pay beginning at 57.5. The increase to staff support at 2%. And then increasing our support staff to $13 an hour. That's the bottom one. That's if I walked in today and applied for that job, that would be $13 an hour. And that adjusts up as we go through our salary. But that's what was built in that budget that I presented. So anyway, that's what, when we discussed in the finance committee, that was their recommendation, is go to $13 from 12 where we're at now. That is the bottom line right now, and that would move to 13.
Do we think that that's competitive enough? I mean, did the finance committee feel like that was competitive enough within this economic environment to get, because I know we're bus drivers short right now, and I think that that's held us
Bus
back
drivers
from-
are actually on a different pay scale, and I can.
Yes, so bus drivers we pulled them out last year so that we could adjust their
Specifically to
salaries,
theirs.
I mean, compensations accordingly, yes.
But you're talking about
This is for
Others.
the minimum that any employee in the district, like for instance, specifically teacher instructional
a,
assistants, yes,
Okay.
or CNS workers, some of those are on the pay grade 1. And so pay grade 1 and those pay plans would be a minimum of 13.
So do we feel like that's competitive?
It is competitive, you know, it's $1 more than what we, you know, where we were this year. It continues to move to that $15 mark. I know that we possibly will have to be there in the future, depending on what may come down from the federal government at some point in time under the age. So that gets us in range. As well, there's some discussion in the finance committee discussed last night. We also provide a incentive for those employees and including that as well in the budget. So there's a $500 incentive at one time, and then the board can also discuss further if there are funds.
I think we left it at 1,000 for that group, so it's 500 in December, 500 in June. That's paid.
But when we look at market, it is competitive. It's not, and again, that's just the minimum. That does not mean that it affects every group in the pay plan going up. So to start your minimum there, it does make sure that we're at least market.
Yeah, the finance committee met last night and we reviewed those numbers pretty strongly because they presented 12, 15, 13, and 14. And so we went through the numbers and what that meant at each level, discussed the stipends that they get a year and decided that this was what was best, knowing what's coming in 24, 25 that we could do. And so we do feel it's probably not totally competitive, but we're getting better. We're doing the best we can. And at the same time, the other thing that Mr. Bailey did also mention was the fact that these employees also have a free healthcare option.
Right.
And so that's something that we are offering that, you know, most of the other plans don't do. Or, you know, when you're comparing something apples to apples, we went through a pretty good process.
Right.
Last night, figuring that the rate was actually $15.75, something like that.
Yeah, so when you actually, you know, do the total compensation, that we break all that out, it's not a $13 offering, it's actually much higher, so there's several dollars involved there that are obviously, you know, come in with the package of the $13, so you're not, it's not just a $13.
It was approaching $16.
Okay,
So,
that helps.
Any questions?
This is probably a question for Dr. Ramsey, but maybe you can answer it. First, I had to reacquaint myself with the definition of supplant, since the legislature supplanting some of the money intended for us, but having been re-educated about the word supplant.
And I apologize, we use that term because most grants are supplementary on top of what you're normally doing with your funds, instead of being able to go back, because this grant goes back to really when we closed for COVID, that you can go back and use it for expenses you've already incurred during the year. So those are some of the things, I mean, that's where you could go in and use the word supplant.
Well, I understand that, but my question, I guess, is a big picture question in that even without knowing the details of what will be in our application for the ESSER funds, the ESSER 3 funds, I am presuming that those funds will go to supplement things that are in our recurring annual budget.
Right.
In other words, not supplant something, but to supplement something. And one, that's I think the intent of the. And two, I think from a fiscal standpoint, it makes sense not to use funds that will only be available for a limited period of time before they go away. Not to use those kind of funds to obligate yourself, for example, to a recurring annual expense such as an increase in teacher salary.
Right. You know, hiring staff is one too, that if that was a choice maybe to bring in additional people, it has to be really shown that this is grant funded, this job will end. That doesn't mean that you would not be able to apply for a job that was open, a position that's open in the district that was normally there. You know, I think some of the things we will stay away from is try to stay away from that type of deal. We will address learning loss as well as we can, because I mean, that's really what a lot of these grants are set up for is learning loss, and how do we make sure that our students' growth and everything else gets back up to the level. And so as we work through our plan and how we want to address that, you know, you don't want to have a recurring cost. You don't want to go out and purchase some, you know, great new thing that could be a reoccurring cost once the grant's over also. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of different things as we go through here and try to, we will not incur any reoccurring costs, because you just can't do that with these funds in.
Rick, that was one of the things we discussed last night when we went to 13 and keeping the $1,000 stipend for the auxiliary workers, was that we realized we've done this for several years now, but we can't be obligated to it because at some point it might cost us, like you're saying. And so that's what we went ahead and approved it for this budget for next year, but we took that into consideration. We didn't want to take that in their hourly pay. So you're exactly right, because we're looking at 24, 25 pretty hard.
Yes. And that's one of the things that, you know, I wanted to, when I had talked to you about this, excuse me, about this budget, get all choked up. No.
You got emotional.
You thinking about 24, 25?
Taking it pretty hard.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's a pretty big hill to jump off of. But you know, one of the things when we started talking about this budget years too is you know, of course, we didn't know we was going to get any additional funding, but how do we tie? And one of the things we're working on for this next year's budget is how do we tie our funds to what our board goals are? And that's something we're working towards also. How do we help when we, in September and October, when we were just beginning this current year budget, but we're already talking about the next year and the next and next. Where are we going and how are we going to get there? And so one of the things that I want to do and the team want to do is how do we address our return on investment? How do we address board goals, and how do we one, be able to say this was addressing board goals? And so we're still working through that process. It's going to be a process, but you know, I think that is something that will help our taxpayers see, and the board see, and our community see how we're addressing different things. And so that's some of the things that we're working through on for this next year's budget.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Dodds?
I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Bailey to finish out the workshop, but thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dodds, President Murray, board members. Very quickly, just for a few moments, because this conversation, of course, could go on for a while, but we have about 5 minutes that we want to talk specifically in regards to the other big piece of compensation and how we take care of our employees. Of course, as human capital, we always try to keep in mind our total package. And we had extensive conversation last night with the finance committee. Years ago, we were not, I would say that maybe not looking as closely at this, but we made a change in 2017, and we hired on Marsh McClellan Agency to be our benefits consultant. And they have done a tremendous job in maintaining, even through the challenges of increasing healthcare costs. They go to bat for us with the insurance companies and try to find all of the rebates and the discounts available, and have really been done a tremendous job with making sure that we are maintaining within budget for our benefits and taking care of our employees. So great kudos to them, and they will come and answer questions. I did my very best last night to talk through benefits, but the experts are here, so I will let them come and present very quickly in regards to where our benefits are as a district and how they compare to other districts across the state. Also, Amanda Hawkins is our benefits director here in the district, and she's worked very hard to make sure that we stay within budget, and we are taking the best possible care of our benefits and the budget, our funds as far as that's concerned. So I'll introduce Heather Reynolds and Julie Barnhill with Marsh McClellan Agency to come very quickly and present on benefits. And I think Trustee Murray teed us up real good about benefits, so we'll.
Thanks, Woodruff. Hi, thanks for having us. Thanks for giving us a little bit of time to talk about something so important. We understand that having health insurance is important for recruiting and retaining employees, protecting them from the financial harm and the physical harm of not having health insurance coverage. We also understand it's a big budget item for Midland ISD, and that it's very, very important that we maintain that budget item and also maintain a financially viable plan for the long term. Health insurance is difficult right now because costs are going up. With new technology, new drugs, new capabilities at the healthcare level, that comes with an expense, right? And Midland ISD is not immune to that increasing expense. On the pharmaceutical side, we're seeing the same thing. Unfortunately, not just new drugs, but drugs that have been around for a long time. We get very in the weeds with Woodrow and Amanda on this. But as a quick example, insulin. The same insulin that has been around for years that used to cost $100, $200 is now a $1,200 expense to your health plan. That's a real problem. It's a problem for all employers across all industries. You guys are in an unfortunate situation that you don't sell a widget. You can't increase the price of your widget to offset the increasing healthcare costs. So it's unique. It's a challenge. It's one that we feel we are best capable to help the district with just because of the size of Marsh. Is the largest broker in the world, and then we're very, very hands-on and in the weeds with your team. So just that's kind of high level, the challenge that we're up against. It's going to be an ongoing challenge. It's not ever going to go away unless there are major, major healthcare reforms that truly manage the cost that's charged to the plan. On our agenda, that's kind of the medical pharmacy claims update. You guys kind of have a double whammy in that in 2020, when others were losing their jobs and losing their health care, they came here. So we saw a lot of spouses, a lot of kiddos, and some employees that had previously had health coverage with other employers came on the plan here at Midland ISD. I will tell you that our analysis shows that if they were healthy, they were more likely to do without coverage. But those who were unhealthy are the ones that typically migrated over and purchased your insurance. So on top of healthcare trends and the cost of care and pharmaceuticals being more expensive, we have that issue that 2020 created for the district as well. So it's been a challenging 36 months. We've got really good news on the renewal. It's a very, very minimal impact to the district and no impact to the district budget at all. So the first thing in this packet you'll see is a spreadsheet that goes back to 2017. As Woodrow mentioned, that's when we began working with the district. Was it about this time in 2017? And what that spreadsheet, there's a lot of numbers there. If you really just want to focus on the numbers at the bottom in the projections category there, that is where we are telling the district what the expected healthcare budget is going to be for that plan year and what the maximum healthcare budget is going to be. So they set your maximum above the expected. You guys have always run very close to expected. But if you look across each plan year, in 17-18, expected cost was 20 million, but the maximum was 24.5. When we came on board and started really with that hands-on approach and marketing the plan, moved pieces of the insurance away from Blue Cross Blue Shield to a more competitive stop-loss carrier, we're able to reduce the district's cost by 1.3 million. The following year, we continued that trend. We were able to decrease the healthcare costs by another $1 million. That was kind of the low-hanging fruit. It was like, there's a new sheriff in town, a new broker. They're very hands-on. They're going to question everything. They're really going to try to battle for every cent we can get out of the health plan for the district and for the district's employees. At some point, you've picked all the low-hanging fruit, and now we've got to battle that healthcare trend, the actual cost of
procedures and medications being more expensive year over year. So you start to see that happen a little bit in 2020. Whereas in 2018 and 19, we reduced the healthcare budget 5.5%, then an additional 4.7%. We saw the healthcare budget increase in the 2020 plan year by about 4%, and we're looking at 5.6% this year. The good news for the district, if you compare 2021's plan costs to 2017 plan costs, it's almost identical. So all the effort that's been put in by the district and Woodrow and Amanda's team has allowed Midland ISD to completely escape medical and drug trend for 4 years, which is incredible. I don't have another client that can say that. So there's been a lot of hard work and a lot of thought put into managing this. Going forward, looking at next year, we do have a few changes to the plan designs and to the budget to consider. So I'll go in order here. The packet, the next thing in the packet is a table that shows maximum plan costs, expected plan costs, and where the plan has actually performed for each plan year. We know looking at this that the plan typically runs very close or under expected plan costs. So that's the number that we advise the district to budget to. So for 2021, 2022, that number is $20.5 million. The benefits team has done a really, really good job making recommendations where we could change some benefit plan designs, change some deductibles, change some out-of-pocket maximums, tweak the drug card just a little bit in a way that we can get to that $20.5 million with as little member and employee disruption as possible. That's always the goal. The very last page in your packet shows the new plan designs that have been proposed. So on the left-hand side of the top table, you'll see the title existing plans. So right now you've got a plan with a $3,000 deductible, and right beside that, the premier plan with a $1,500 deductible. What we want to do is offer 2 additional plans to employees. And those plans would have a little bit higher deductibles, $4,000 on the basic plus, $2,500 on the premier plus. That will allow the district to keep that free plan option for employees that is so important. As you were talking about earlier with some of your lower paid employees, that becomes a huge part of their compensation, and it's really, really important for recruiting and retaining employees, and it's just really the right thing to do. So by making those changes, we offset some of the medical trend increase and keep that plan at no copay or at no payroll deduction for those employees. Other than that, the out-of-pocket maximum increases just a little bit. We are likely going to make changes to the drug card. There's a few medications. We'll take insulin, for example. There's 2 main forms of insulin. One of them costs a lot more for Blue Cross members than the other. And so if we can steer Midland ISD employees to the one that is lower cost, it will save the district money, save the employee money as well. So that's kind of the thinking on some of the pharmacy changes. We will not be taking away anyone's access to any type of medications, just restricting maybe what brand they can get of that medication, and to help, again, control the costs. Woodrow, anything else that I need to, I guess we talk about
Does the
benchmarking?
employee clinic provide any sort of basic I know the county clinic provides some pharmacy services.
Yes. So our partnership, and we have a clinic that is also a huge benefit to the district. And so that is a $10 copay for all employees, and they diagnose and they're able to get prescriptions as well. So that's not the copay that, is normally prescribed. So it's a huge benefit as well.
Do you happen to know what our utilization is at the clinic? Is it well?
It's well utilized. I don't know, we can get that specifics for you, but I mean, it's a huge recruitment piece.
Right.
And it's well utilized. It's well run as well. I mean,
Great.
your minimal number of wait time when you go to the, and it's about an appointment when you walk in.
And it applies to their families too, so
Yes.
if you have a sick child.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Yeah, we utilize the clinic for the sports physicals as well as like our flu shot clinic, that they actually come to our locations.
Great.
So we partner with them on a lot of things for our employees.
And our main point with benefits, thank you, Heather, so much, because our main point with benefits is being able to provide the board with enough information that you can combat the narrative that, well, we have a 3%, 2% raise for employees, or $1,000, we've raised the minimum, the teacher starting salary, and that was all even the benefits. Well, heard that's not the case. We are definitely changing some offerings, but benefits cost. We've been able to work and together to make sure that they stay the same, and we're still able to offer a quality benefits program. That's the main piece.
And Woodrow asked that we provide some benchmarking just to make sure that the offerings here at Midland ISD are comparable to other school districts close by, and with TRS, and your deductibles are lower than your competitors. And office visits are in line. Employees pay less for coverage here at Midland ISD versus other school districts. The district is picking up more of the cost, and your plan overall runs better as well. So I've got a lot of benchmarking data. It's all positive. It's great for Midland ISD. And I'll be glad to get that in Woodrow's hands if you guys want it after the meeting.
Mr. Rutherford, I have one more question, because I want you to say it out loud. How many districts, or what's the percentage of districts across the state that offer a free plan like ISD does?
Yeah, so over 1,000 school districts in the state of Texas, and less than 2% completely have a plan that completely covers the employee's contribution for insurance. So we're in the 1%, 2% of that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for being here. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Thanks. The last item on our agenda is number 5, closed session in accordance with Government Code Section 551071 for the purpose of private consultation with the board's attorney or all subject matters authorized by law, and 551.074 for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of an employee. We do not have, we do not have actions arising from, I'm saddened by 2425 also. We do not have actions arising after closed session, so there's no need to hang around unless you just want to, but at this time we will ask for the room to be cleared for closed session. Thank you. Welcome back. The time is now 1:24. We're emerging from a closed session.
Motion to adjourn.
There is no business, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
You